We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's talk.
Good morning and welcome to Adu and the Guru on Monday, July 12th. And it's a beautiful day for us to have great conversation as always. Just to let you know that this is a very interactive show. Would love to hear from you and have you join the conversation as we progress. And of course, here always every Monday we bring you an analytic perspective to all the stories that are making the rounds in the papers, and you will be having a great time with us here. Join us on the WhatsApp lines to air your thoughts, 0809-234-5913. Later on, we're going to open up the phone lines and allow you to be able to join us via phone call. But for now, you can reach us via WhatsApp. So, without further ado, let me bring to the microphone the editor-at-large of the newsguru.com, the indefatigable national youth leader, and one we call the Guru. Good morning.
Good morning, Adu.
How are you today,
the
sir?
The aspect of your introduction that I always respectfully willing to be welcoming at all times is that youth leadership.
Yeah.
But not many Nigerians have believed that I'm still the jury, de facto youth leader of this country.
Well,
Are they not missing the point?
They obviously are.
Thank you very much. You understand the facts of the trajectory and you present them accurately. Good morning, Lagos Talks 91.3 FM. This is Adu and the Guru. Adu is my Commander General. Is my Comptroller General. Is not my Inspector General Police, but commanding everything in the general atmosphere. But above all, he's the Deputy Pope, Africa Affairs. On that, thank you very, very much, my Lord Spiritual. So, today, we are about 10 minutes behind schedule, but like as I will always say, the pilot would always tell you when it's leaving Europe after loading and loading Nigeria luggages, and they will say, Nigeria can buy, we have a delay, but no cause to worry. We'll make up for the time. We shall make up for the time. You will lose nothing. I have in the studio today a guest. I shall come to him in a moment because it's a pleasure whenever I have this man with me, either in the studio or in his domain as a teacher, because I can't leave his presence without gaining much. It reminds me of what the one-time Director General of the Nigeria Law School said. What's his name? Birunke, that's good. He's the one you heard his voice behind us. Just reminding me of the name I wanted to. He's made a statement concerning Ganifa Weme. He said any day that Ganifa Weme had a case in the Supreme Court, that he abandons everything to be there. Because that you cannot be in presence of Ganifa Weme leaving the place without learning something new about law. So each time I visit this man or he visits me, I have much to learn from him. I will mention his name. He's coming on the microphone very, very soon. And I really begged him to leave some of his national assignment to be here. I will respectfully adhere to the little contract, little understanding we had of that, because I must allow him to leave here 11:15 so that he can catch up with other assignments. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been here, but he considered to me. So thank you very, very much. I don't want you to answer me for now. Thank you very, very much for that. Don't answer yet. Now, historical perspective will be short. Today, unfortunately, you will not be having your knowledge robust. I deliberately removed those in order to tackle all the things we need to tackle. The historical perspective is a quote. It was an interview, a short interview the Premium Times had with former President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan. That was October 11, 2019. The Premium Times asked the former president a question. What will you say is the biggest and most enduring legacy you left for the country at the end of your tenure? Jonathan answered. Please listen to it. A legacy of tremendously improved electoral system, to such an extent that I, as an incumbent, lost to an opposition candidate. A personal loss I consider a win for the Nigerian nation. I had every instrument of state coercion at my disposal to undermine and compromise the electoral process to Equibet advantage, but I refuse to do such because I place the interest of Nigeria ahead of my personal interest. Do I read it again, or you heard all said? Did you hear me well?
I did.
Okay.
But for the sake of those who probably just want to...
Okay, just one more time. What Premier Times asked ex-President Goodluck Jonathan this question? What will you say is the biggest and most enduring legacy you left for the country at the end of your tenure? This question was October 11, 2019. And President Goodluck Jonathan, I just call him president, but because in America, president is always president. X is never there. President Goodluck Jonathan replied, a legacy of tremendously improved the electoral system to such an extent that I, as an Equibet, lost to an opposition candidate. A personal loss I consider a win for Nigerian nation. I had every instrument of state coercion at my disposal to undermine and compromise the electoral process to my Equibet advantage. But I refuse to do so because I place the interest of Nigeria ahead of my personal interest. Head of film show. I pray and I hope sincerely President Muhammadu Buhari will be able to say something like this in the coming year. 2023, maybe December, October, or 2024. Let's move. This is the historical perspective, but there is something I need to read out because I just sent a message to the spokesman of the Lagos State Police Command, Adejobi. You Adejobi? Yeah. The Chief Superintendent of Police. And I told him to listen to the program because what I will narrate now for just 2 minutes is a matter we shall be dealing upon. Last week, upper week Saturday/Sunday, some policemen, about 15 of them went to work at a very odd hour of the night. There is no odd hour for the police. They operate 24 hours, 24/7. They decided to stay at a particular part of the road that the traffic along the street would always be difficult. So one had to drive against the traffic because of the gullies and bad state of the road. We're talking of if you're going to Badagry Road or coming from Badagry, coming into Lagos or coming into Maitu, after Lasso, Lagos State University, then somewhere between there and is it Volkswagen or somewhere up to Abule, Ado, or so they call it. These policemen got there around 11:30 in the night, and they positioned themselves. All the vehicles coming, they were parking them, and they were with one slogan that this is the greatest offense in Lagos State today, to drive against traffic. Okay, which we usually call one way, but the real English is driving against traffic. And the people were begging. They started with that we will take you and your car away. You will pay the fine. Lagos State government will pound the car and they will crush the car or sell the car. They narrated all these fearful things to their victim. They were victims that night. And they held them there till almost 2 a.m. Then, when they knew that those people were really tired, then they asked, what do you want to do? They started with 50,000 naira per each car owner on that road. And this operation is led by Assistant Superintendent of Police, 2 stars, not 1 star, 2 stars, Isupu. And most of them said, we don't have money here. What we have is just 5,000 naira, 2,000. They say, no. Where would you have your money? Where's your money? And like a game of conspiracy, most of them said that if we can access any bank, we have our ATM, we would go. So at 1:30, they now said, okay, let all of us now move to Festac. There are a lot of banks there in Festac. And they positioned themselves. The first car ahead, 2 policemen were inside that car because the driver was alone. And they now positioned about 1 or 2 in maybe after 4 cars. Then their own vehicle led the convoy, like pilot car. Then another police vehicle was behind at the end. And this is how they drove into Festac. The first bank they came in Festac was GTB. No money in GTB. So they came to 21 Road of Festac town to Stanley Bank. And of course there was money. So the people were now withdrawing money and give it to them. The money. The least they took was 10,000 naira. And because they looked at the man, they said, you must have been in government before, so let us reduce your own. But every other person, 50,000 naira. They collected this. And in fact, they offer to escort one of them who says he was going to either Igomo, somewhere very far. Very far. They told him, don't worry, when we finish here, we will escort you to your house. And they did. They kept that promise. This is what policemen from Lagos State Police Command, under the Commissioner of Police, Odumosu, Hakim Odumosu. Hakim Odumosu is not new to Lagos. For many years, he was the PA to Bola Tinubu. It was for that reason that there was almost a tornado the other day when a commissioner of police was posted to Lagos and he was there. But anyway, he returned back. One, Odumosu is doing a very good job. But how can the commissioner of police explain this? I sent him a message, he did not reply. Then the CSP, the Chief Superintendent of Police, who is the Public Relations Officer now, told me that if I can pass the information to him, we will work on them. But these are not information I pass to you that you work on. We will discuss this matter either tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday. So, PRO, you heard me, what I said. We have facts of all these things. I cannot sit here and be talking about the police, the organization that I am closest to most in the whole world, and come out. That was a disaster. It was a shameful act. It is not to be tolerated, but it happened. And with confidence, they were there. They held some people for almost 5 hours before driving in a cover to Festac and arranging this thing and going to the bank. Okay, go and bring it. Go and bring it. Even one of them asked, where is your POS? You are supposed to have a POS. Say, no. The one of the POS, they trace it quickly. This. Take your hand to go and collect your money and give it to us. Food for thought. It is a matter we are not abandoning. We shall look at it later. Now, I have a pleasure not to go straight away to the menu because the menu are lucrative enough, but because my guest has a limit of time and they might be taking off exactly 10 minutes to 11, he will leave the studio. So what we'll do now is that I'll bring him a microphone, we'll discuss. Then I will give opportunity to maybe 4 or 5 callers. Then after he's departing, then we fall back to the menu. Whatever we can do is what we would have done. Yeah? At all, nice poor market. Now, so we dey talk for worry. At all, nice poor market. Something, at all, there must be something today. And permit me to welcome to the microphone my very, very good friend, my very, very good brother, my very, very good teacher, my very, very good erudite lawyer, a senior advocate of Nigeria, my own lawyer, our lawyer, Professor Joseph Abugu, a lecturer. Okay, they don't normally call themselves they would say I'm a teacher of law in University of Lagos. You are welcome, sir.
Thank you, Guru. I do. Thank you for
Good to have you here,
today.
sir.
First, I appreciate you because I saw the quantum of what needed your attention this morning. You jettisoned them to answer to Nigeria calls. So we are grateful, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Now, the issue we got to discuss this morning, my yesterday introduction in my broadcast last night, I call it Rumbles at the National
Assembly.
Rumbles was something that was introduced by who? Muhammad Ali. In the fight he had, is it 1974 what? In Zaire. Under the leadership of that chaotic, autocratic leader, Joseph Seko Mobutu. Don King was the promoter of the fight. So Don King went shopping for money bags to sponsor the fight. Nobody came up. So Don King took a delve of a risk. One, he came into Africa, he went straight, he got somebody, connected him with Joseph Seko Mobutu, And of course, Joseph Seseko Mobutu knew the relationship such hosting would do for him. Having bastardized, compromised reputation in what he started with Shobe, with Kasavubu, in the killing of Patrice Lumumba, when they tied him to a car that drove him around the streets of Kinshasa before he died. Before he died, he made the statement anyway. He said the tree of unity had to be watered with blood. That is the prime minister. So there was that conspiracy. So Seseko Mobutu now accepted. And Muhammad Ali had just defeated the United States of America when the Supreme Court set him free that he had no need for him to have gone to prison because of his refusal to forcefully be conscripted into the war of Vietnam. So he was set free. He defeated the state. And he was now coming back to reclaim his heavyweight title. Born Cassius Clay. That's it. Now Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali saw that, and Muhammad Ali knew that he needed the title. Because he had established himself in 1964 when he made the statement that I will stick like bee and dance like butterfly. So he came. That must be the reason why, probably, the name Robos in the Jogo was given. Muhammad Ali called it, and it stuck. George Foreman was the defending world champion then. Of course, I'm not in the sports zone. Why am I going into all this?
You're trying to give the historical perspective.
Historical perspective.
Which is your forte.
Thank you very much. You stop it there. Now, today, what we have in the National Assembly is many times rumbles, not the Jogo this time, at the National Assembly, the Nigerian National Assembly.
Right.
Then the Nigerian National Assembly might probably be a Jogo, the way it is going now. And we need a technocrat in the field exclusively of law to interpret. Maybe it is for this reason that I brought Professor Abugo to come and tell us. Where are the rumbles? We have a National Assembly. The news has just come out this morning by my own newspaper, where I'm the editor at large, that some of the senators got $7,000 to get the PIB, Petroleum Industry Bill, passed. Some of the House of Representatives got $5,000. It may sound 7,000, but by the time you convert it at, it's now 500 naira at VI, but other places 495, 490. It's money to get it passed. We will look at the PIB, the Petroleum Industry Bill that was passed. Now, the hosting state, those states that suffer the consequences of extraction of crude from the ground, are now to get 3% from something of a 20% that the people argued for, to 10%, to 5%, they are now to get 3%. Then, there is a new dimension of introducing or of interpreting what a host community is. Apart from the host community that are traditionally known to us, the new law now has brought in a dimension that if the pipe moving, either the crude, passed through your domain, any state, the pipe, that state has become oil producing state and has some benefit. But that's not the calamity. That is not even a calamity, so to say. The calamity of this bill is that 30% of profit made is forcefully taken by NLPC to give to those states that are within the basin where it is being suspected that there might be crude under the ground. All this they've been doing over the years. And the northern regions, the states in the northern region benefit maximally from this.
Because the basins are located in that part.
Because the basins are located there. And for example, the crude, the pipe that passed through to Kaduna would have passed through some states, Niger State and many others. So now, those states, because of the pipe passing there, there. And the states that have the basin now are benefiting almost 40% from the revenue, whereas the host state, 3%. That is one area. Then let us look at the electoral reformation bill. Thank God, Professor Jega has just made a statement yesterday when he said that if you say you can vote electronically and you are not transmitting electronically, that is never for Nigeria. That kill Nigeria. The National Assembly had gone, we are told, but they may shamefully now go and insert it back because the business they know how to do best is insertion, padding and insertion. Don't forget, they do best. One, they made INEC, they dethroned INEC of financial autonomy to be independent. That's number one. Two, they said it will not be possible to include electronic transmission of results. But they accepted that the instrument you use, the card reader, at the polling booth, is electronic. There's no way they could reconcile this together. And Senator Dume had just said that the reason why the system electronically will fail in the north is because there were no electricities. Yet, he said he found more comfort in Maiduguri than Abuja. Yet, his phone never go off in the place he claimed. So, there are many things which defy understanding. Do we have a National Assembly that is there to represent the interests of the people that voted them? Or we have a National Assembly that are proved to be a greater disaster than any other thing upon Nigerians? Sir, it is only you that I have at mind to help us out. Decode it. Yeah, please, sir. Be very, very factual with us in your area of specialization. You are law. Law is you. So tell us, these are what I call rumbles at the National Assembly. What is our prospect? Can you define them? I give you the time, sir. I hand over to you. Go ahead.
Thank you, Guru. You have raised quite a number of issues. We'll take them one after the other.
Please do, sir.
First, on the Petroleum Industry Act that has been passed. I actually think that the first rumble that we should look at is the fact that our representatives, both at the Senate and the House of Representatives, thank God for the electronic media that has made it possible that these days we are able to watch live proceedings in the National Assembly, in both chambers. Sometimes you will be appalled by the level of attendance of members on the floor of each of these houses, particularly when critical instruments, critical legislation are being considered. You look at some of the chambers, they are half empty. And you then wonder, where are the people's representatives who are supposed to represent their interests? Because as it is, if your representative is not present and the business of the day has been duly scheduled, the House or chamber will go ahead with its proceedings. And by so doing, they arrive at conclusions that binds those who were absent and binds their representatives and the entire people of Nigeria. So you take the PIB bill as one that has been passed by, both chambers of the National Assembly. A number of issues were lingering while the bill was being considered. You would recall that public hearings were organized by the National Assembly in all the geopolitical zones to have representations on some of the content of the bill, why it was a bill. Now, this bill has been passed into an act, And some of the salient and cogent issues that were raised as at that time were not addressed in the past bill as it is now. Let me take a few of them that...
and you'll be brief with them because we have many other issues to tackle.
Yes, please. Now, first is this issue of 2.5% or 3% or 5% monies to be set aside for host communities, as you have just identified. They were looking at, a situation where ultimately what will be passed to the president for his assent will be one prescribing 5%. Because visually all the critical stakeholders are opposed to this issue of 3%.
Okay.
And would rather go for a 5%, even though representatives from the Niger Delta would certainly have preferred a 10%.
That's good.
Now, but let's even look at it. The so-called 3% or 5%, as it may eventually come through, is money to be set aside from the annual expenditure estimates of the oil companies.
Okay.
It is not a contribution by the federal government for the
betterment.
This is from
the oil companies?
Yes, it is not a contribution from the federal government for the development of the host communities. So,
sorry, sir. The federal government, I know they have, is it up to 60% of the joint ventureship with the oil companies?
Well, it depends on the content of the production sharing contracts and joint venture contracts they have with the oil companies.
Okay, sir. But what you're telling us now that this money is from the oil companies?
Yes.
Not from the federal government?
No.
As to develop the area that's so devastated?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, sir.
The oil companies are to provide this fund and pay the monies from their annual expenditure estimates into the host communities development fund. So the question we had raised why that bill was under consideration is, all right, if this is coming from the oil companies, what is the federal government's own contribution?
Sure.
Well, some have said, all right, when it comes to revenue allocation, the oil-producing states, already enjoy a 13% derivation share, of all, oil revenues. But essentially, this would appear to be a tax that is being passed to the oil companies, and the federal government is not contributing to it in any way. So that is one.
Okay.
Two, you've also raised the issue of, the definition of a host community, now including a community through which there is a pipeline right of way. It then qualifies as a host community. If you consider the fact that oil pipelines carrying crude will traverse from Niger Delta all the way to a refinery in Kaduna, then you can then imagine as between the various communities that the pipeline would traverse after leaving the Niger Delta to Kaduna, how many vis-a-vis the host communities, how many communities in the Niger Delta actually will benefit from this fund? Because the majority of the communities would then be those
on the length
of the pipeline in arriving Kaduna. So that makes nonsense of the definition of a host community. Okay? Some have also made the point that if you say the same thing, of pipelines, then you might as well say the same thing of PHCN high-tension cables that traverse the whole of the country, so that everywhere that
a pole is
erected, becomes a host community, for an electrician, a power station, or a power grid. Now, so that doesn't make sense, I mean, if I have to borrow the words of our brother Senator Bruce, let's just make common sense out of some of these things. Okay.
Bruce of Silverbird.
Yes. So that's another issue. Mm-hmm. Okay. And we hope if it can still be amended, something should be done about that. Mm. Then some other critical areas include the fact that the PIB Act, established a number of institutions for the regulation of the petroleum sector. Okay, there is a commission for regulating upstream. There is a body for regulating downstream. There is a body for the regulation of gas and associated gas resources. Now, we did make the point at one point, why the bill was under consideration, that in the composition of these bodies, there is no affirmative provision that recognizes the right of host communities, particularly of the Niger Delta, in the composition of the bodies under the Act. One would have thought that, in the upstream or downstream regulatory agency, yes, that an institution like the NDDC would have a representative in the board.
At least.
Or that oil-producing states will at least have one representative, if you do not want to descend to the lowest level of having community representatives. You see, because these are bodies that will be regulating, activities that will be, that affect the people directly.
Yes.
And so we did make the point that we may end up with bodies, statutory bodies for the regulation of the petroleum industry, that will be dominated, by one section of this country to the detriment of the host communities, whose lives will be directly impacted by the players, yes, by the participants in the industry. These were not addressed.
Okay.
So, as it is, there is a lot of rumbling. But let me also make this point.
What about those states?
The 30%? The basin?
Yes.
That's the next question
yes.
we're going to ask.
You can say a word about that.
Yes.
It's just as important.
Yes. You see,
because 30% of
profit. Is it coming from the profits or coming from the federal government?
Again, you see, we're talking of development of basins where oil or gas resources are being prospected. In other words, we're doing exploration.
Yes.
We want to find out, in the Shad Basin, for instance, in the Lake Shad Basin, for instance, as arid as it is, we want to see whether, there are petroleum resources underneath it.
Yes.
And so we want funds to be able to prospect. Now, if 30% of profits of joint venture operations are going to be devoted to sponsoring those researches, those prospecting. Now, you then wonder, as between the basins that are being prospected and the communities that are already hosting oil installations, who is better off? Development of one will earn 5% or 3%. Prospecting in another, where resources have not yet been found, we're just prospecting, you get 30%. Well, you can make the argument that 30% is said to be 30% of profits, while the 5% is supposed to be annual expenditure estimates. But the point still remains that if you want to prospect, now, why would the funding be to the detriment of host communities, yes, and the entire Nigerian nation?
Maybe interest of a section supersedes interest of Nigerian nation. Just maybe.
Yes, maybe, but trying to make common sense out of all of this.
Okay, Bruce, you have been called upon again.
Yes, trying to make common sense out of all of this. Under production sharing agreements, typical production sharing agreements or joint venture agreements for prospecting oil locations, there are usually provisions for the sharing of cost or how cost will be accommodated. Okay. Now, why are we leaving the realm of matters within the domain of private treaty, in production sharing agreements, in joint venture agreements, and bringing them into statutory national discourse of how resources are shared and
very abnormal.
Are shared and utilized. It doesn't make sense.
Okay, sir. Let me just ask, because before we move to the other area of electoral reforms,
yes,
which is another disaster. This question, please, I would just want a word from you for 1 minute.
Yes.
It had been alleged that while clause by clause of this bill was being raised, a draft was not given to any of the members. Or a section of the country had a meeting somewhere by Zuma Rock and agreed. Then another section went to Trop, what you call that hotel?
Transcorp.
Transcorp, eh? Okay. All right. And agreed. As of the day that it was being said, the draft of the totality of what they want to discuss had not reached every member of. Did you hear anything like this?
Well, that is why we're talking of rumbles.
Aha, okay.
Okay. You see, by legislative practice, there's nothing wrong with members holding caucus meetings, and deciding and having some common agreement as how legislative business will be conducted on the floor of the chambers. Yes. So the fact that some met in Transcorp, some met at another hotel, they're all part of, the common legislative.
But what about the draft that did not reach all the members?
Well, my brother Guru, the thing is this. The National Assembly has powers to regulate its own proceedings.
Yes.
And if a document for consideration ought to have been circulated amongst members to facilitate a clause-by-clause discussion of the subject matter, if that was not done, where was your representative to call a point of order to say this document has not been circulated? We cannot consider it in the air. Probably your representative, like I said earlier,
slept on their right, as your lawyer would say,
was in absentia or slept on his or her right.
Snobbing.
Exactly. And
having dreams.
And so, they are our representatives. So if they considered the bill in the air, at the end of the day, the official copy that is transmitted to the clerk of the National Assembly becomes the authentic copy of what was considered.
Okay, sir, let's step into the electoral reform issue.
Okay. Well, you didn't quite raise the issue of the electoral reform. Which aspect of the electoral reform do you consider a present rumbling in the National Assembly?
I consider two in my layman's there are many.
Yeah.
But I want to pick the one that says, because it said that clause of electronically transferring to had been removed.
Yes.
Though the Speaker of the House of, the Public Relations Officer of the House of Representatives just told us on Friday last week that, no, why are we speculating? We bring everything complete. Nothing is removed. Until when we see it, before we know something is removed or not removed. But with this affirmative statement of Professor Jega just yesterday, saying that this cannot help Nigeria, it means they have really removed it. Maybe they will bring it back. I wouldn't know, because we are now dealing with people, not all of them maybe, that have no shame, or maybe always be sleeping on their rights, as your lawyer will say. That is number one. Number two, denying INEC autonomy, financial autonomy to run its business. It's another thing. And which sections of the reformation that will bring Nigeria into digitalized age, by removing Nigeria from the analog age, would you consider are all included? Because now what we are saying now is, we have not finished. It will not go. It will go. But information from authentic, which was why Jega spoke yesterday. Jega couldn't have spoken out of oblivion. So go ahead, sir. Help me. Help my inadequacies.
Well, Guru, the point is sometimes you do wonder whether our leaders are sincere about electoral reforms.
Okay.
I think the issue really is whether we have a legal framework, a legal and regulatory framework that guarantees free and fair elections.
Okay.
Now, you would recall that...
question is something that
yes,
we throw more rumbles into the
because that is the kernel of the matter.
Go ahead, sir.
You would recall that after the 2007 presidential election, President Yar'Adua, then elected, was forthright enough to admit that there were flaws in the system.
That the instrument that brought it to power
is flawed.
This was why Justice Uwe was appointed to... Am I right?
Yes.
Go ahead, sir.
So, and in furtherance of that sincerity, he did set up an electoral reform committee.
Yes.
And that committee held extensive consultations on how to make the system free and fair.
Okay.
And then they presented a report. Fortunately or unfortunately, that report was not adopted, as it were, as a working document. But the ensuing electoral reforms of 2010 indicated that some of the recommendations were picked. Now, but a principal part of those recommendations of that committee was the recommendation that INEC should be unbundled, and that INEC is too big as it is, and its operations will become unwieldy as a result of its size and the enormity of its responsibility. And it was proposed that 3 agencies, should be, should come out of, the unbundling exercise. Certainly, we know that has not happened.
Okay.
Now, but then, a number of bills were then presented by way of electoral reform in 2010.
Yes.
And one of those reforms achieved a number of things.
Okay.
One of them is the financial autonomy
for INEC. Okay.
Okay. So when you say that, INEC is being denied financial autonomy, I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
But the first amendment to the Constitution of 2010, because the issue of funding is germane, is a constitutional matter, the Constitution had to be amended to make INEC budget a direct charge on the Consolidated Revenue Fund.
Okay.
Okay, you will also recall that, in 2006 and 2007, there were delays even in the compilation of election registers, the voters' registers, because of, debt of funding. They were not coming as at when due to INEC, and INEC became incapacitated, and it affected logistics. Okay, so the First Amendment has now given INEC its budgetary, financial autonomy, so that its budget, once it is approved, becomes a first-line charge, on the Consolidated Revenue Fund.
It is this now, the information slipping out, that the present this thing is trying to remove INEC from that.
Well, it's a constitutional matter. The Constitution had to be amended.
Removal can be accommodated.
Yes, an electoral act, as has just been passed by the National Assembly, or that is about to be passed by the National Assembly, would not be able to take away that provision unless the Constitution is amended.
Okay.
Now, another thing that was introduced by one of those amendments is the powers of INEC to be able to declare polling results at the polling unit.
Okay.
It wasn't there before. Okay. So, of course, the issue of whether an election at a polling unit that was not fully completed, using the fingerprint machine,
the card reader,
the card reader, is valid or not, didn't sail through. The proposed bill to make that a reality, so that electronic voting will become the norm, was not accepted to the presidency, so it wasn't signed, And it was this present president that refused to sign it.
Yes.
Okay. So the position of the law remains that election results can be declared at the polling unit. Now, if that is the law, you then wonder, again, as a matter of common sense, why would there be a specific legislation that then seeks to prohibit the transmission of that result electronically to INEC headquarters or, regional or state offices? It doesn't make common sense.
Sir, let me say what here. More so, where consideration is adequately given to the introduction of ZPAD, which was first of all put into practice in a constituent in Plateau State, then deployed in Edo State governorship election, then deployed again in Ondo State. All these are, and it helped. It increased the credibility of those 2 elections or 3 elections, as we are saying now. Will it really be wise to say that you can do this only here, you cannot transfer this thing electronically to this? Will it be wise?
One thing you must give to the present INEC, and again, fortuitously, this is the present INEC leadership that is succeeding in midwifing.
Professor Yaku.
Yes, that is succeeding in midwifing more than one national election. And so you find that under the leadership of Professor Yakubu, INEC has been taking, consistent strides, being innovative in trying to address some of the shortcomings in the electoral system. They forcefully argued for electronic voting. And at one point, INEC said that they were ready to introduce electronic voting in this country.
Yes.
But our president shut it down. And you then wonder, after that Bosch effort at electoral reform, okay, it has taken 3-4 years before electoral reform is back again on the agenda. Okay, less than 24 months to the next general election.
Okay, sir.
So you then wonder where I began, the sincerity of our leaders, whether truly they want the electoral system reformed to be able to assure free and fair elections.
Thank you very much, sir. You may want to hold it there because we are departing very, very soon.
Yes.
I want you to open the line so that maybe questions, because rumbles at the National Assembly, maybe it's pluralistic of rumble in the jungle. So that Professor, did I say when I was introducing him, he's a senior advocate of Nigeria?
Yes, you did.
Okay, thank you very much. So open the line.
Okay, so call us and...
You can answer his questions before...
before he goes. Call us on the numbers 0809-234-5913, 0809-222-0913, and 0809-191-3913. You can also call 015150-913 and 015151-913. Please turn off your radio when you call us so we can hear you.
Yeah, the radio is off. Good morning, sir. Guru, good morning.
Good morning. Please, we have a minute and make fast of it, please.
Yes. My question quickly to the prof. Now, on the remittance from the oil companies, the 5 or 3 or whatever %, I don't think from my perspective that money should also, or any other allocation should also be the prospecting basins. Because if we are talking about the commodities that the oil exploration is taking place, we are also talking about the degradation of the environment. We are talking about, like today, I think Bayelsa, they talk about children dying because of this oil spill and so on. So I don't think any money from the oil companies should go to the places that they want to explore oil, because no activity is taking place there. No ground is being degraded there.
Hello.
I'm asking, sir, is it right to say that those people that are land are degraded, means of life people taken away, should have the same thing?
You have gone beyond your 1 minute, please, sir.
With those that nothing is happening there, their land is still intact.
Okay, please, when you call in, if we say 1 minute, please let us manage that 1 minute properly. That's number one. Go straight to your specific question, because if the man leaves, I will not have the brain to answer your questions. So, and before the man carries his brains away, please be specific and be punctual. 1 minute is 1 minute. Go ahead.
We have another call on the line. Hello, good morning. Sorry, call us back. Hello.
Hello, good morning, sir.
Good morning. What's your name, please, and where are you calling from?
My name is Kolawole Akinele. I'm calling from VI.
All right, Mr. Kolawole, go ahead.
Actually, mine is not a question. It's just a reaction to what the erudite lost caller we have in our house has said. It is only when we have access to our lawmakers that is when we can pinpoint what we want them to do for us. But these people, immediately they get into the house, they are inaccessible again. So how do we throw questions at them? How do we tell them our opinions and observations? They only gather together at their political rallies. After then, you don't see them again. So if it's a country whereby we can easily have access to our lawmakers, that is where we can say, oh, so rep, so senator, this is what we want, this is what you should do for us. So that is just my reaction on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Please accommodate them so that you can...
Hello, good morning, Adu.
Good morning to you, sir. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. My name is Chuks, calling from Ogudu.
All right, Mr. Chuks, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, the Guru. Good morning, the Professor.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you.
It's a very good program. I just want to say to continue to reward you, Guru, Adu, and the Professor as well.
Amen. Thank you.
Then coming to the subject of the question of today for the oil, the PIB Act, what I would like to say is that these reps were elected by the people in those regions. Talking about the oil community now. Now, since they are not speaking or not taking action to this, the people cannot just keep quiet. For me, I feel the people should hold them responsible. The chiefs, the rulers of those regions should hold their reps responsible for not speaking out and countering this. Because it's of no use of them being there. But the people and the rulers should not just keep quiet and let it be. That's my take. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please, before another call, let me add this question. Prof.
Yes, please.
The question is this. Is it that the electorate, we, Nigeria, the electorate, is it that we have slept too much on our rights? Because I don't think there is any country in the world that the constitution states you have to bring your representative to accountability. The people, they know their right. They summon themselves together and say, we want to see. And is it because Nigerians, we have slept too much on our rights? You want to log it down?
Yes. The issue of whether our reps were making enough representation to them is actually a very germane issue that is very, very deep.
That's good.
For example, during the passing of the PIB bill, you could see the Deputy Senate President, Senator Uvioma Agege, spiritedly, advancing why a 3% or a 2.5% would not be the right percentage for contribution to the host communities.
Yes.
He made a very spirited argument. But as I remember from one of my old literature books in those days, he said, one man cannot fight a dozen. So they threw me out. So if you get into a brawl in a bar and you are 1 against 7, inevitably, inevitably that was what played out. As Deputy Senate President, spiritedly as he tried to project the interests of the Niger Delta and host communities, he didn't have his way. Now that is one. What that raises is the skewed composition of both houses of the National Assembly. In one breath against the southern part, and in another breath against the oil-producing communities, oil-producing states. The representation is so skewed that, the representatives from that zone are mere pawns in the game, that takes place on the floor of the National Assembly.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Please, go ahead.
All right, let's read our friends at the pen. This person says, his name is Prince. He says, good morning, gentlemen. PIB has not been passed into law. Senate and House reps just passed their versions of the bill.
Yes.
The next stage is for both houses to harmonize.
Yes. Very true.
It says the 30% for frontline basin is from the profit made by NNPC, 20% for the NNPC, and 50% to be shared by FG, state and local government. The new bill makes NNPC a private company. That's what this person is saying. Yeah. Prince joining us on WhatsApp there. This one comes in also from WhatsApp, says, good morning, Guru. The politicians behind the forgery against the patriotic, vibrant Finance Minister Kemi Adeosun should be brought to book. Ikemba from Mafuluko.
That would be a terrible one, because I explained the procedure here the other day, what happened.
Yes, may I just throw a little bit of light into this issue of the 30% that is coming from NNPC.
Yes.
You see, under the new bill, soon to be act, the NNPC, there is to be established a company now to be called NNPC Limited. And a substantial part of the assets of the existing NNPC are to be transferred to this body.
Okay.
And the bill then makes provision for the composition of the board of the new NNPC. This new NNPC will then be an agent, as it were, to deal with oil companies and oil prospecting companies on behalf of the federal government of Nigeria.
Okay.
So the 30% that will be coming from the profits of this NNPC, note profits, okay, that money ought ordinarily to go into the Consolidated Revenue Fund. And to be shared by all the tiers of government. At least, since we still do this sharing constitutional arrangement. Now, but this bill now proposes that money, rather than go to the Consolidated Revenue Fund, will now be used for the development of oil basins.
Okay.
That is expropriation.
And the NNPC Limited, or whatever it is called,
yes,
will still be under a Minister of Petroleum Resources?
Of course, yes.
Which obviously, okay, let me not go to that.
And one of the points, we have made is that you setting up a company like that, oil-producing states are not represented in the board of the NNPC Company Limited that is going to be established. There's no representation from, oil-producing communities. NDDC is not even represented on the board of that company. Now, you see, I had earlier made the point that first and foremost we must recognize that the PIB Act, first and foremost, is a continuation of the federal government's sequestration of petroleum resources, both land and in the sea, of host communities. In line with the old Petroleum Act, in line with the old Mineral Oils Act, in fact, the new bill categorically stated in its first two sections that, oil resources still belong collectively to the federal government of Nigeria. So, by way of affirmation, it actually puts paid to all the clamor for ownership of own resources, management of own resources, financial autonomy, and control of own resources, all those things about resource control. The PIB bill affirmatively made it clear that it has not deviated from the centralized ownership of oil resources.
Okay, sir.
One would have then thought that even if you want to continue in that line, some modicum of affirmative affirmative recognition of the interests of oil-producing states and oil-produced communities should gradually seep into the legislative framework. But it has failed to do so.
Okay, sir. This is not why I brought you to the studio today. Okay. But permit me, those of us who are not learned, we can be weighed in our questions. The Mineral Resource Act and the Constitution, is there any separate, is gold and diamond belonging according to the Mineral Resources Act? Are they in the same category, or the Mineral Resources Act put petroleum crude under the federal government and gold under the people of an area or a state government? My question is seriously focused on the fact that one bunch of gold was taken by the governor of Zamfara State, taken and presented to President Muhammadu Buhari. Then President Muhammadu Buhari asked the CBN to purchase it, and it was bought for 5 billion naira. Why can't one barrel of crude, why can't I go to my fatherland and take a barrel of crude and say, this is my own? Okay, Buhari, look at it. Oh, yeah, tell governor, etc. What is the nature of the law? The Mineral Resources Act?
Well, Guru, that's one of the aberrations in the federal government's management of oil and mineral resources through the ages. Mm-hmm. If you have limestone, on
which, by the way, Nigeria has.
Which Nigeria has in abundance. If you go to Benue State and all of that, you see that there is abundance of it.
We have all the
some of them on the surface of the earth. You don't even need to dig anything. Now, if you want a solid minerals license to prospect and harvest limestone, all you need to do is approach the ministry responsible for solid oil minerals, and then get a license, usually first for a term of 3 years or 5 years. And then you go and settle with the host communities because they won't allow you to do anything there. So you have some form of agreement with the host communities, then they allow you.
Yes.
Now, once you've done that and you've paid for your mining license, you harvest. Whatever profit you make is yours. Okay? Now,
and this is not applicable to
this is not applicable to crude oil. So you find that solid mineral resources are being harvested. All that you need to do is pay some token. There's no production sharing agreement when it comes to harvesting, solid minerals.
The meaning...
that is how skewed the management of our oil and solid mineral resources are. Skewed against, the Niger Deltans, on whose soil God, has found it fit to bless with crude and gas resources.
Can you please read one or two because
has to go.
My brother will soon be leaving. Yeah.
Okay, this one comes from... I don't know your name now. Binga, okay. Good morning, Adu and the Guru. Would there be a host community when gold is being transported?
Okay. We are just explaining.
Exactly, when it's being transported. Yes, every road the truck passes.
Ibrahim from Igeja says, good morning. Electronic vote or transmission cannot guarantee a free and fair election in Nigeria. These are my reasons. 1, it can be hacked by hackers who might be paid by politicians. 2, electronic finger thumbprint most times is a difficult issue. 3, lack of network or power supply in some remote villages can disenfranchise the eligible voters. And 3, so it says, please, let's stick to our manual votes for now till when a lot has been done in the area of infrastructure.
He's a student in the class dominated by Senator Dume. And not only Senator Dume, and maybe with my very good brother, Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Minister of State, because answering to the hard copy edition of channel televisions just 3 weeks ago, though he said this is my own opinion. No, he said it was his opinion, but when a kite like that is flown, we know where he said the electronic transmission of results of election. We should not bother by doing it now because it's only one country in Africa that did it, and it's Kenya. And it collapsed. He did not see other countries that did it. Then Wadume now came with his own. When Wadume was charged the other time for passing information to Boko Haram, the telephone he used, was he not using it from those areas? Please, pick one or two.
Let's take one more because our friends with the pen have more inputs.
Okay.
This is the last one now. Adeboye Gadedeji says, Ado and the Guru, why is it that the stuff in the PIB bill doesn't make sense to us, but seems to make sense to those in charge of making the laws in the National Assembly and the House of Representatives? Are they not there to share our course in the National Assembly?
Anyway, Femi Gbagabia last 2 weeks said, ordinarily, this is his grammar, ordinarily we ought to represent the people. But now, that word ordinarily, I can speak English, I can edit English. It is when it moves to the technicality of law that I will always be the professional in. That word ordinarily shows that this is why we are here, but for reasons of exegesis, which in most cases we will not be able to see. The pockets decide and quack. Now informations are coming out that for this PIB, some collected $7,000, some collected $5,000. So the idea, Gbagabia Amila told us all. I think we have to awaken the patriotism of the electors, the electorate, so that they can wake up and call their people. Because there is no constitutional provision for that in any country. But the people know their right, they exercise it. So, but here, do we know our rights? If we know it, do we exercise it? If we don't, is the divide north, south, or this and that not an issue? The other day, the Nigerian Bar Association, sir, thank God you are a senior man there, the bad, pardon my language, the bad Rufai from coming to give the lecture, he was invited. I'm not saying the procedure taking was right. But what happened? Within 24 hours, we saw Northern Nigeria's lawyer coming to form another bar association. So as long as this issue of North-South dichotomy, there are North-South dichotomy in many countries of the world, but they don't allow, I think we'll be sleeping on our right for reasons not that could be displayed in the dark room of politics, where ages are never students.
You know, it may be convenient for some persons to say that because of our stage of development, that we are not ripe for electronic voting or even electronic transmission of results. But the point is, we are not even at the point of electronic voting yet. What we're talking about is electronic transmission. So we'll still go to polling units and use ballot boxes and use ballot papers. That's not electronic voting. It is when that has been completed, we are saying that there should be mechanism for the result, which the law has already enabled to be declared there at the end of the polling. You know, I remember in the last election, I waited in my polling unit until everybody had come. You know, we took benches and sat down and waited for the votes to be counted, and the results of the unit was declared before we went home. So we are at the stage where we need the enabling framework to say that the result that was transmitted from that venue is the authentic result. What we're doing now, the result is declared there. Exactly, is declared there. I, as the voter, haven't had the result, I then go to my house. Okay? The officials who will then take the result from there to the collation center, a lot do happen and can happen.
Pregnancy comes and children are delivered of ballot.
Exactly. So all that is being sought is to enable that result that is declared there to be transmitted, and what is transmitted there then becomes the authentic result. And why should there be any opposition
about this?
Why should anyone say that we are not ripe for that at this stage of development?
Prof,
it doesn't make common sense.
Prof, is it not like just sending you a text message?
Exactly.
And you get it on WhatsApp message and you get it at a jiffy?
Exactly.
Oh. All right. Listeners, you've asked your questions. You represented adequately. You are a good representative in your own National Assembly, unlike the other one. So, I think because of an agreement reached, Uzuba Badiwe gave it a court Kokodia. He said what you saw in the house today is nothing but the benefits of Accord Kokodia.
Yes.
Then he said, you don't have to go and look for the meaning of this English. These are the Zikiism of our word. They come from our different dictionary. Kisli, Uzuba Badiwe. Sir, I so much want to appreciate you again for coming.
Thank you, Guru.
And in attendance with our agreement, except if you tell me now that you are not going yet, I will be too happy. Otherwise, I'll be very, very happy to release you.
Thank you very much.
Joy, get me Prince Way so that I can take our picture, then we'll move it to other things.
Thank you.
To some, it's just entertainment. To others, it gives you information. But to us at Lagos Talks 91.3, it is conversation. Let your voice be heard.
Welcome back.
Yes. Back to the issue. The break was to see my guest out. Now, we had a menu here, 7 appointments, but I can promise you something, Adu. You know you are my Commander General. And you are my Commandant General. Please compare me to share our thought on this thing within the next 2 days.
Yes.
We will review, then we ask some of them. The first thing, fat banditry insurgency not Kano. Umar tells federal government, Umar, Kangiwa Umar, Kole, former governor of Kaduna State, the man who resigned his regiment because he believed that the cancellation of the election of Abiola Tofa was a misdemeanor act, was unfair. We cannot talk that. 950 people abducted from schools in 6 months, says UNICEF. Oh, that is much. That is much. Okay. 2, how bandits play music, partied all night after killing 19, Bonny community in Katsina, Daily Post. All the callers, Brigadier General, they are now in the forest in Kaduna. After anemia. Anemia. His wives, his children were all kidnapped. The audacity with which the banditry perform their act now is a total evidence, not controversial evidence, that there is no government to tackle the matter. Meaning, government has lost out in Nigeria. Otherwise, look at the effrontery of what happened in Katsina State. No, before I go to Katsina State, look at Beth Baptist School.
Yes.
Abductors came, or bandits came, or Fulani herdsmen came, or kidnappers came, or unknown gunmen, the latest name now, or no gunmen came, and abducted and carted away those children like somebody carting away unused shoes. And the next day, look at this audacity. The bandit leader also called the owner of the school, the proprietor of the school, and said, oh, I'm calling on behalf of those who came to pick some of your children yesterday. Or are you not aware that we arrived at your school and we took away? He said, yes, sir, yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. He said, don't panic. I assure you one thing. Quoting him now, I assure you one thing. We will not kill those children. And they are safe, they are good, they are healthy. In order for you to know, take your time, talk to as many as you want to talk to. And the owner of the school now was, okay, can I? He said, yes. Joanna, take. He said, hey, my son, James, how are you? He said, we are fine, sir. Okay, are you there with them? Yes, sir, we are there with them. This conversation going on in a country that invested money on trackers. All the security apparatus, they have their trackers. Some individuals even have trackers. And you could not track these people and get them arrested. And the bandits calling back the next day, don't forget, we gave you promise we will not kill these children, but starvation will kill them more. because no food. Bring so number of bags of rice, so number of bags of beans, so gallon or cans of palm oil, red palm oil, and they listed and these people panicking move some of this, and they have the audacity to reject them, saying this is not what we told you to bring. No. So if they die of starvation, we promise you we will not kill them, but we cannot stop starvation, not killing them. And yet, you have a governor, city governor in that state, by name, El Rufai. And this was El Rufai that talked everything about Goodluck Jonathan in those days, saying all means are good for negotiation. El Rufai. And what is worse, do you know that kidnapping is a state crime? It is not federal crime. It is the state. Look at this. Then, again, they went to Katsina, the home state of President Muhammad Buhari. Abba, let us fear God at some time. Let me go back to the village to meet Patience Goodluck Jonathan. There is God, oh! There is God, oh! Oh, what are we doing now? They went to Katsina, killed every person in that community, set all their houses on fire. Then they came with instruments of music, and they were playing music from 12 to almost 5 a.m., dancing, celebrating the success of what they've just achieved. That is killing their brothers and sisters. And the security outfit in that place, immediately they heard the music and everything. They knew that there was no way they could approach this. Don't forget, those brave young soldiers that pursued the better school, 2 of them lost their lives. They are children of somebody. Sometimes they are husbands of somebody. Then they play music and dance and maybe took kanji. What did Orlando call it the other time? Kuyeye. If you don't take kanji. Until 5 a.m. in a country, can we really say this is a country? I'm afraid. So maybe that is all.
We are Lagos Talks 91.3.
Let's talk.